Chapter 20. Mercy. Hive Mother Zilania, 3771, cast an exasperated gaze across the holographic nursery floating in front of her. The intricately constructed image of the hypercube, which itself was constructed from a composite of thousands of tiny little cubes, mostly glowed a desolate shade of green, the colour of vacancy. The giant nursery, which had a maximum capacity of no less than 1 million incubation cells, offered only a small random smattering of violet blue, distributed throughout the slowly rotating three-dimensional grid. As Zilania peered forlornly at the endless rows of empty pods hovering in front of her, she could not help but feel a strong sense of resentment. After all, there was once a time within greater Xicadian society when her rare genetic trait would have afforded her significant prestige and status. Sadly, that had all changed virtually overnight, when many millennia ago the Zihari Revolution had quite literally swept across the entire face of Xicadia, with the urgent new imperative to drive the global population down. The corresponding need for empathic arachnids suitable for the role of hive mother likewise diminished dramatically. As a result, the vast majority of eggs detected with this rather peculiar genetic trait had simply been disposed of, to the point that the trait itself was at genuine risk of being completely eliminated from the gene pool. Perhaps rather fortunately then, a small group of Zihari scientists became aware of the danger just in time to save the hive mothers from a literal extinction event. Regardless, the simple fact of the matter was, they were no longer needed in anything even close to their original numbers. As a rather depressing consequence, their days of elevated cultural status was nothing but a tragically distant memory. Far from being a role that garnered any prestige and recognition, the hive mothers now suffered from a new age stigma, as if they themselves were personally responsible for the ensuing ecological crisis. Some particularly outspoken queens even went so far as to claim hive mothers were literally destroying the Xicadian species with too much love. Due to the near extinction of the empathic trait, that rather inflammatory rhetoric quickly dried up. But nevertheless, Zilania now lived in an age where her role in the nest was at best tolerated, and more often than not, treated with open contempt. For what seemed like the millionth time, Zilania expanded the three-dimensional image in front of her to explore the bottom left region of the holographic nursery. Under full magnification, the image was more than detailed enough to see the unique location ID of each individual incubation cell. After hesitating briefly, she pensively double-tapped the cell labelled X45Y36Z39, and the holographic image was quickly replaced with a glowing wall of text and numbers.
Classification, Shihari. Incubation status, overdue, 2 days.
Zelania double-tapped the cell's ID again, and it immediately reverted to the previous image. She continued to repeatedly flip from one display to the other, as if doing so would somehow miraculously cause the incubation status to change.
Come on, you reticent little sackling. The whole nest is awaiting your lordship's arrival.
The hive mother muttered impatiently under her breath as she continued to flip from screen to screen.
Classification: Shahari. Incubation status: emergence pending.
Xylania's finger froze midstream, and her mandibles started to twitch with excitement.
See now, that wasn't so hard, was it?
An automated voice alert started to speak, seemingly coming from everywhere and nowhere all at once.
Cell X45, Y36, Z39, hive mother attendance is now required.
The alert was quickly followed by a mild but irritatingly incessant alarm, while the voice message continued to periodically repeat in the background. The detailed text for X45, Y36, Z39 was now locked on the visual holographic image, along with an overlaid dialog box flashing a message in bright, bold, and impossible to miss text.
Hive mother biosignature required. Tap here to comply.
Zelania irritably jabbed a digit at the holographic glyph, which, somewhat mercifully, caused the alarm to immediately shut down. A short moment later, the voice message was cut off midstream and was instantly replaced with an updated announcement.
Hive mother Zelania 3771 acknowledged and logged. Proceed to bay X45, Y36, Z39 and prepare for delivery.
Barely able to contain her excitement, the hive mother opened a nearby storage cabinet before briskly pulling out a hatchling blanket from a large stack. She then hurriedly scuttled her way towards an automated transit cart, which obediently sprung into life as she made her approach.
Destination?
The cart asked perfunctorily.
X45, Y36, Z39. Exactly where else would I be going?
Cell X45, Y36, Z39 selected. Please confirm destination.
Oh, for Xicadia's sake, confirmed, confirmed, confirmed.
The hive mother replied furiously, and then, from underneath her breath, added,
Why can't you just do as you are told for once, you mindless rolling automata?
For both your safety and the safety of others, please engage restraining belts.
Xylania rolled her eyes wordlessly, and then peevishly clipped her 2 side legs into their harnesses, allowing her 4 posterior legs to rest comfortably within their assigned rear-facing grooves. She grasped the horizontal stabilizing bar at the front of the cart with her 2 outer forelimbs, while using her center limb to place the blanket into a small cot. With barely contained excitement, she proceeded to activate the cart's local holographic display. The cart started to whine with a low electrical hum and accelerated smoothly away from the main auditorium. Strips of lighted arrowheads blazed brightly on the floor's surface directly out in front of her, quickly fading out as she passed them by. The automated cart rounded a few tight corners, running up the curved wall embankments to prevent itself from rolling. As the cart continued to snake its way through the empty corridors, Xylania's abdomen swayed heavily with inertia. She silently acknowledged to herself that engaging the leg harnesses might not have been such a bad idea after all. It didn't take long before the cart entered the giant nursery grid proper, and the sheer sense of size and scale never failed to unnerve her. Most of the cells lay empty and dark, which created a feeling of oppressive desolation. This place had long since become a ghost town and was absurdly larger than it needed to be. In the glory days, it had apparently been quite literally a hive of activity, even occasionally pushing maximum capacity. What would life have been like back then? She could not help but idly wonder to herself. Well, far more chaotic, certainly, but there would have been a powerful sense of purpose and vitality in a way that was no longer possible today. No, it was a very different story now. Strict population control was autocratically mandated and fastidiously audited. Every nest dutifully played its part, yet it was an uncomfortably persistent reminder that Xycadia was a planet whose best days had long since passed it by. Few now questioned the prevailing wisdom that if any nest wanted a truly long-term future, then it would not be on Xycadia, but out there in the dark, endless void of space. Her stream of consciousness made her shiver, despite the fact it was not at all cold, and the coarse hairs on her legs involuntarily bristled on end. The empty and featureless corridors continued to whiz silently by, echoing their mournful lament of a once vibrant past that oh so sadly would never come again. After traversing seemingly endless rows of empty pods, the cart pushed its way up one last steeply curving gangway and into one final, long, desolate corridor. The Y and Z coordinates on her holographic display now held their values statically at Y36 and Z39, while the X value inexorably ticked its way up. Xylania could now see the target bay directly up ahead of her, rhythmically pulsing in colour from blue to white, announcing to the world a new life was about to spring forth. The cart smoothly decelerated to a full stop, just as the X-coordinate locked in.
Arrived at Bay X45, Y36, Z39. Please disembark at your nearest convenience, Xilania 3771.
The hive mother excitedly unclipped her leg restraints, manoeuvred herself out of the cart, and then cast a baleful glance at the vehicle.
Stay here,
she snapped tersely, before returning her gaze back to the incubation pod. It shimmered like it was wrapped in a glowing, translucent cocoon, literally brimming with hope and promise. Still muttering under her breath, Xilania unzipped a pouch pocket from a backpack firmly strapped to her dark, matte black silken thorax. She pulled out a small ID card, which she waved impatiently in front of a featureless metallic post. The field protecting the bay immediately changed colour, becoming noticeably less intense as the security barrier shut down. She absent-mindedly returned the card to the pouch on her back before snatching the hatchling blanket from the cot. After taking a small moment to steady her nerves, she apprehensively scuttled her way through the now softly glowing bubble.
Xilania 3771, auto-sterilization protocol in progress.
Intoned the same synthetic voice that had evidently pursued her all the way from the auditorium. Well, this is it then, the hive mother thought to herself pensively. The egg itself was nearly a perfect circle and almost pure white in colour. It was contained and semi-cocooned within a supporting hexagonal pod, tilted upwards at about a 45-degree angle. A large glass shield protected the visible portion of the shell. While Zilania stared reverently at the perfect little egg, it suddenly began to wiggle and skitter, almost as if it could sense her presence. Well, she was a hive mother after all, so who knows? Maybe it actually could.
Come on, my little warrior prince, punch your way out into the light. I know you can do it.
Zilania stabbed a nervous digit at a nearby holographic glyph, and the glass shield silently retracted. The egg now started to wiggle violently as a noticeable crack formed across its surface. A piece of the shell suddenly broke away, and a coarsely haired and damply glistening limb pushed its way through victoriously. She could now see 9 tiny little digits grasping at thin air, and immediately recognized this was one of his forelimbs. Face first and fearlessly into the unknown, the hive mother thought to herself, with an almost overwhelming sense of reverence. And I'd expect nothing less of my brave little Zihari lord. The spiderling's tiny little digits wrapped themselves around the broken edges of the thick shell, then, with a startling amount of force, ripped a large chunk of it away. A short moment later, a curious little face popped out of the small hole, with a cluster of glittering red eyes peering outwards into the bay. The baby arachnid quickly settled its gaze upon the hive mother, who was holding the blanket out in front of her, expectantly.
Welcome to the light X45, Y36, Z39. My name is Zilania, as in Zilan-E-R. I am your designated hive mother, and it is my greatest honour to receive his little lordship into the open arms of Nest Zitalia.
The baby Zihari spiderling just stared back at her suspiciously. The expression on his face strongly suggested he was attempting to carefully weigh her up. After a very short but tense standoff, he apparently made up his mind and ferociously leapt into the waiting blanket as Zilania quickly wrapped it around his damp little body. Unable to contain her excitement any longer, the hive mother let out a small shriek of joy. Now cradling the baby spider in one arm, she broke off a piece of shell from the empty egg sac before scuttling her way back towards the transit cart. Zilania gently placed the hatchling into the cot beside her, and then quickly secured her legs back into their harnesses.
Zilania,
A small voice called out from somewhere deep within the cot. The hive mother just beamed back brightly, mandibles stretching wide to form a joyous smile.
Yes, that's absolutely perfect. My name is Zilania, and yours, my little Zihari lordship, will very soon be revealed. Well, they said you would be a fast learner, but I didn't think you would be quite that fast. Bless you, little child. Bless this nest, and bless this truly wonderful day.
Zilania now offered the broken piece of shell to the baby spiderling, who in response just continued to eye it suspiciously. Undeterred, and in an attempt to ease its apparent concern, the hive mother proceeded to mimic an eating motion. "Yummy, good for you," she continued to mimic patiently. The baby spider seemed to ponder this for a moment before greedily snatching the piece of shell from the hive mother's hand. Xylania quickly flicked the holographic display back on and issued some terse instructions to the cart, which, after receiving confirmation, obediently made its way back to the auditorium. Still filled with the joy of the moment, she now scarcely even noticed the deserted halls silently whizzing by, their ancient stories of joy and sorrow long lost to the shadows of time. Upon her return to the main auditorium, Xylania gently scooped the baby spiderling out of the cot and briskly made her way towards the bioinduction lab. The lab's large circular doors irised wide, and the hive mother excitedly made her way in, baby spiderling cradled protectively under a forelimb. A Ximmetry technician, awkwardly positioned under a bulky and partially disassembled analysis pod, cast a distracted glance in her direction.
Well, what have we got here then?
The technician muttered under his breath with a mildly patronizing tone.
Could this actually be the new Shihari replacement unit we've all been anxiously waiting for? Or is it just another, run-of-the-mill Ximmetry underling ready to do its bit for the glory of Nest Zetalia?
Xylania rolled her eyes with despair. She could not help but wonder when this type of undisguised cynicism had become the new social norm. However, ever the pragmatist, she decided to simply treat his largely rhetorical question as a timely opportunity to express her caustic disapproval.
Pay no attention to this indolent reprobate, my young Shihari lord. After all, when you achieve the title of general, which I have every confidence that you will, he will no doubt be one of the first to fall to his knees in a blind rush to pledge his grovelling fealty.
Despite her savage retort, Xylania noted, with quite some considerable amount of rancour, the technician had returned to his work and was no longer paying her even the remotest amount of attention. As she glared resentfully down at the Ximmetry drone's flattened-out limbs, one of his hands reached out searchingly from underneath the console, feeling its way around blindly for a nearby tool. Seizing the opportunity, she caught the edge of the device with one of her feet and deftly nudged it just beyond his reach. The Ximmetry technician, apparently now fully absorbed in his work, continued to mutter quietly under his breath.
Well, I never. An old-school hive mother bearing an actual newborn Shihari. Whoever would have guessed it? Now where's that damn fusing iron?
After feeling around the floor unsuccessfully for a few moments longer, the technician pulled himself out from underneath the console, just long enough to grab the tool before quickly disappearing back under again. Xylania sighed heavily, then made her way frostily to one of the medical pods at the far end of the lab, putting as much distance between herself and the technician as physically possible. She tapped irritably at the pod's control panel, and its glass shield obediently slid wide, allowing her to place the Xihari hatchling gently within its interior. As she attempted to remove the blanket from the spiderling's body, he clung to it fiercely and refused to let go.
Now, try to be brave, my little lord. You can have it back as soon as we are done, I promise.
The expertly soothing tone of her words seemed to somewhat reassure him, and he reluctantly released his grip on the blanket. Zelania quickly retapped the control panel, and the shielding swiftly slid back into place. The spiderling immediately pressed his hands against the glass, as if to gain a sense of his confinement. The hive mother, who had begun to make some soft cooing sounds, activated the pod's holographic display, and then, somewhat apprehensively, selected the postnatal bioscan. Zelania's intuition told her this hatchling was something very special, and while speech always came quickly to the multi-brained split minds of the Xihari, to have spoken her name just moments after hatching, well, that was nothing short of astounding. Greater than 3 brains, she already had little doubt. But maybe this future Xihari general might even go beyond 5. Just imagine it. Another 7-brained Xihari lord. Someone to finally keep that brilliant but unorthodox Xihari scientist on his toes. She felt quite certain that after the untimely death of Ximodian 110, this baby spiderling could well prove to be the successor Queen Xitalia had been so desperately trying for. But in any event, the bioscans would quickly confirm if her instincts were right or not. The medical unit now started to glow brightly, and a fine crosshatch of red photonic beams, forming a flat vertical grid, inexorably made its way across the pod. The baby spiderling immediately scrambled to the opposite end of its cage, his array of dark red eyes growing wide with fright. The small black pupils darted their way around wildly, half searching, half pleading for any way out.
No, Zelania.
A frightened little voice cried out desperately, muted and muffled as it was by the pod's feeble internal amplifier.
Hey now, just try your best to stay calm. This is all for your own good, I promise.
The hive mother heard a small, condescending snicker echo forth from the far end of the lab.
So this is our next great military leader, huh? I feel a lot safer already.
Zelania tried her level best to ignore the technician and kept her eyes firmly fixed on the little spiderling, who, try as he might, could not scale his way up the smooth glass panel. With nowhere left to run, the photonic grid began to robotically cycle back and forth across his body and legs. He bravely endured the scan for a brief moment, before launching himself back to the other side of the pod, grid relentlessly pursuing close behind. Quickly recognizing the futility of trying to escape, the spiderling became stoically frozen to the spot. The photonic waves mindlessly proceeded to do their job, as the grid increased in frequency from red through to blue, methodically working its way repeatedly across his still, damp little body. He did nothing further to resist. However, Zelania couldn't help but notice all his eyes were clamped tightly shut, and his legs had begun to shake violently. After what to Zelania seemed like a small eternity, the photonic grid finally began to fade out, and slowly, one by one, the baby spiderling's eyes popped back open. He stared at the hive mother accusingly, and Zelania wondered, somewhat miserably, whether he would ever fully trust her again. The holographic display started to spit out a detailed report, which she quickly began scanning to see if this really was the new Ximodian she very much hoped he would be. There was, however, some bright flashing red text that all but demanded her immediate attention. For the briefest moment, her mind refused to acknowledge what she was reading. But after redigesting the text several times, the warning message slowly started to penetrate her profound sense of disbelief. "It's simply not possible," she whispered silently to herself before casting a furtive glance back towards the technician. Not possible. But there it was anyway. Something so wondrous and terrible, not even her greatest of dreams, nor worst of nightmares, could ever have thought to conceive of it. She stealthily engaged the holographic editor and made a very minor alteration to the data in front of her. A small glowing number immediately changed from red to green, but still brightly outshone everything else around it. Breathing a silent sigh of relief, she surreptitiously hit the save button and was instantly asked to confirm the update. Wincing visibly at the audible request, she hurriedly jabbed a digit at the confirmation glyph. With the alteration now successfully made, the hive mother turned a disbelieving gaze upon the baby spiderling, as if just now seeing him for the very first time. No wonder his aura glows so brightly, she thought to herself, with a genuine sense of revelation. The identifier X45Y36Z39, which hovered innocently in the air, now innocuously transformed into that of a name. The hive mother whispered it reverently, as if to savour the taste of it on her mandibles. Ximodian 111. A very special name for a very special arachnid. I promise you this, my future Zihari General. Your secret will always be safe with me. Zelania eagerly pressed a digit to the control panel, and the glass shield smoothly retracted. Ximodian instantly leapt back into the open blanket, and the hive mother instinctively held the baby spider close to her heart.
There, my brave little Sihari General. Everything will be just fine, I promise.
But even as she spoke the words, she knew this was a promise that wasn't hers to make. After casting a reproachful glance at the holographic display, Zelania very surreptitiously selected Submit. She felt almost as if she had just gotten away with the perfect crime. But as she tried to discreetly depart the lab, the technician yelled out loudly in protest.
Not quite so fast, Hive Mother. Did you seriously think that I had somehow failed to notice? Hive Mother or not, I'm not afraid of you. No, don't fuck with my tools ever again. Not if you know what's good for you anyway. By the way, exactly how many brains did we score this time around?
Zelania suppressed a profound sense of relief.
9 more than you.
She replied vitriolically, before hurriedly exiting the lab.